Can you hear me, Jimmy? No, you're depressed about the Yankees. Right. Can you hear me, Jim? Hello. I see you got the gram. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, folks. Welcome back. I am your host, Cliff Schechter. This is Cliff's Edge. We don't call it a podcast. We'll call it a live stream. We stream live. Thanks for being back. It's Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern here in the Queen City, Radio City, the beautiful city of Cincinnati. There's a lot of crap going on out there, man. They sure throw the feces at you quickly, let's just say. I'm trying not to curse in the first few minutes. We'll let it fly later. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up. David Schuster will be joining me. We've got Kristen Crowell, Fair Share USA, who is fighting to get rid of that terrible BBB bill that we won't even say it's beautiful. It's just the best bill you've ever. Okay, I'm not doing that. And the harm it causes everybody. And that got me thinking, cuts to Medicaid, cuts to SNAP, but they made sure to put some important things in there. Like, well, you could write off your first, I think it's your first year of your new jet airplane. Write that off because you should be able to write off the costs associated with that. If you have any of you happen to own a rocket launching company? Yeah, you know the way airports can issue bonds? Now you can if you've got a spaceport. Gee, who are the people that have spaceports? I feel like Bezos, Musk. We should starve kids so they can have that, shouldn't we? Yeah. So I thought I'd talk about something that I think is really important and I think sort of ties together everything we're dealing with right now. We have what can only be called a predator class in America. They are the predator class. And if you think about it, who they are is a very small group of people, right? We talk about them as the billionaires, the super lobbyists, some of these guys who are, these little creepy advisors who hang around with Donald Trump, like that vampire Stephen Miller and 8-Ball McQueen there, Donald Trump Jr. and all the rest of them, right? They're this creepy, exploitative group of people that see all the rest of us. We're just parts. We're goo. We're stuff for their experiments and their algorithms and the rest. Like, we don't really exist. And the crazy thing about the predator state or the predator economy, if you call it that, and I don't want this to get mixed up with the movie Predator, because obviously the Predator franchise, they had some bad ones along the way, but some of those films are good, especially the one with Schwarzenegger killing them, whatever fits well. Schwarzenegger's taking on the Nazis on the right. But I'm not saying these guys are the same as them. Kash Patel looks like them. I'll have that in my Substack today. There's a common ancestor there with Kash Patel and the Predators. You'll see. But I'm talking about these sick individuals. We've talked about Jeffrey Epstein and sex trafficking. They, of course, are sexual predators. Abuse towards women, Hegseth, Trump, whatever. They're predators when it comes to women. One of the biggest area financially, they want you in debt. Get their credit cards. Look what I just got. Hey, look at that. I haven't been a student in I don't know how long, but man, they sure do send these out to everybody. Who's eligible to borrow? How much can you borrow? And I had to open immediately on this thing. I mean, God forbid I'd waited a day before borrowing $225,000. And gee, our lifetime debt limit includes federal and private loans combined. I mean, a whole lot of bullshit in here in the end. They're just a glorified payday lender. Man, they want you borrowing for your car. They want you borrowing on your credit cards just to eat. They are predators when it comes to everything, okay? Your prescription drugs, your healthcare, your food, anything you need, they want to control you. And that's who this small group of sick elites are. And if you can tell by their behavior, most of them, I mean, we don't know what Elon Musk did. We certainly know that he's in plenty of pictures with Ghislaine, whatever her name is, Jack LaLanne. If you're from New York, you may know that. Maxwell. It's the connections between all these people, all of them that were Trump's inauguration, your Bezoses with their 40, freaking $1 million weddings, and Zuckerbergs and all of them. They are a predator class. The advisors around Donald Trump are a predator class. They are simply exploiting all of us. It is what we are. They exploit workers, they exploit consumers, they exploit the environment, they exploit any natural resources around here, and that includes what we are. We're people. Again, we're just there to be experimented on or used as workers or goo. Hey, will this algorithm screw you up mentally? Let's see. There was a case I was watching earlier today where on CNBC, the president of Bank of America went on, and they had denied Donald Trump bank accounts there after he was president. So Donald Trump got really mad and insulted him. He was like, hey, Bank of America, you're the worst bank, whatever. This guy cowered on live TV. He's the CEO of Bank of America. He's like, oh, we'll have to take care of that when it comes to Donald Trump. Known money launderer and felon. That's the kind of person that maybe a bank wouldn't want to lend money to. But, of course, hey, who cares, right? Donald Trump, we're all bowing down to him, aren't we? And by we, I mean they. Corporate America, all of these people. And I just wanted to make, the point. The last couple of weeks, it's not like this is something that has been terrible for me, but you read story after story about Americans who, if they got into trouble, they wouldn't have $1,000 at their disposal, or the ones that says that for what they consider a respectable middle-class lifestyle, I was reading one of these studies where 60% of Americans can't afford to just take a week's vacation every year and, work their jobs, take a week's vacation, enjoy leisure activities, just regular, what we used to call regular American stuff. Can't do it. There's even something on upper middle class populism. And again, folks, I want people to take this seriously because we are all everybody is in this together against this little ruling class. These are people that thought they're doing great, making even $200,000, $300,000 a year, can't afford to send their kids to private college, can't afford to pay for childcare, can't always afford the commute to work, can't afford like health care if there's a major thing. It's like, I'm not saying they're the same as people that are destitute, though I am saying that we've all of us been exploited by this small group of evil people. And this is the way every society goes, where they try to have all of the power in those couple hands at the top again. The ass-kissing advisors, the wimps like the CEO that went on TV. So, a couple weeks ago, somebody sideswiped my car and my nice little Subaru. Just a innocent Subaru, didn't do anything wrong, unless somebody took a sledgehammer to it. But I came out and somebody had hit it. Of course, they didn't leave a note because we're living in Trump's America and everybody's encouraged to be their worst person they can be. And it was far enough away from where I worked that there were no cameras. So no way for me to prove anything. So thankfully, insurance company did offer to pay for it. But of course, I've got a $50 deductible, right? So I got to pay $50 up front for something I had nothing to do with. Then they give me a rental car and I get a fob. And of course, the rental company is one of a huge conglomerate because they all are. Nobody actually owns their own decently middle or small company. I mean, who would do that? And I spent Monday, guys, I couldn't almost get my work done. I misplaced the fob. We got a cute little kitty. I've talked about her before. She's got diabetes. I walked in the house at night, had to give her shot. And being the absent-minded ADHD doofus that I am, and I say that affectionately about myself, so nobody take offense at that, please. I left the fob in the cat syringe box. I don't usually do that. I put all the stuff that's important to me in the same spot because I know myself and know that if my wallet, keys, whatever aren't all together, I'll lose them. But I did this. I spent all day looking for it because when I called them, do you guys have an extra fob? Of course not. What can we do? Well, we can come and we can tow your car back here. That'll cost between $400 and $500. Okay. And then what? And then we make another fob and that will cost about $250. So you see, with the 50 I started off with, and now the 750, 650, 750, whatever we're talking about here, we're talking about $700 to $800 out of my pocket. Just like that. No, they couldn't help me out with an extra fob. They couldn't help me out in any kind of way. All they could do is sit there and wait to just extract from me. And thankfully, I have a wife who is 3 times as smart as I am on a bad day, and she found it. she in the end was like, hey, let's check the kitty box, and she found it. But even if we hadn't, I'm lucky enough in that it would have hurt, but I could have afforded it. But how many people, if they got hit with something like that, $700, $800, could not afford it? How many people would that absolutely destroy? A lot of us, according to anything out there, up to 40, 50% of us, according to recent studies. And again, it is this predator class. They are one in the same. Because everything to them is sociopathic. Everything to them are things to be used. I don't care if it's a Jeffrey Epstein group, their little cabal. I don't care if it's someone like Pete Hegseth and how he behaved towards women. I don't care if it's the banks, it's insurance companies, it's all of them, because we are people to be put in debt. We are resources to be used and then dumped when they are done with us. Do we want that kind of country? Because that's the decision we need to make now, because that's where we're headed. Luckily, there are some good folks. There are some good liberal folks, some good leftist folks, some good moderate folks, some good Democrats, some no good Republicans. Sorry, I've given up after Lisa Murkowski's vote for that horrific bill. So I used to say maybe there's a good Republican here and there. They're going to have to show me one again soon before I'm going to believe it. But that's where we are. That is the state we are currently in. Okay, we are in a predator nation, and that is what I'm going to call it, because we have the predators of this small group of advisors and super rich and whatever who use and abuse and discard the rest of us. It's sickening. It's not America. It's not American. It's not what we are supposed to be. It's not what we were economically from the 1930s to the 1980s, when we were much like Western Europe. And damn it, I don't care what we have to do, but we're going to fight and get back the America that we had, as we see what, Cory Booker standing up and yelling about Democrats needing to get tougher, as we see Texas Democrats leaving the state. I don't care what it takes at this point. I just wrote a Substack about it. I hope you'll read it on FDR and then need to channel our inner FDR. It's time. He didn't just say, oh, institutions are working fine. He got rid of the ones that didn't work. He created new ones. He pressured the courts and others. They tried to make it sound bad. I remember I took history classes. Oh, court packing. Well, you know what? After he went after the court, they stopped they stopped deciding magically that all of his bills were unconstitutional. It's time for us to go on offense and go after them. And I'm not saying, as you always know, I always have to say this, I'm not calling for violence or anything physical. Non-violent protest everywhere you can. Calls, bodies. If you can help, hell, if you're in Congress, you help write legislation, do it. If you have a PR outlet, do it. If you have 5 Facebook friends, you can get to share something, do it. But don't let them continue us on this path to where it is literally this group of people that are able to be predators and the rest of us are the prey. And that's what I have to say to start off today. David Schuster, I see, is here, who I'm inviting in. I also see Kristen Crowell, whose name I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, is here from Fair Share USA. Sorry, I can go a little bit long on these here and there, but I get a little bit angry. So let me. Well, David Schuster, you all know, right? Well, no, I don't mean because you're, David Schuster. I mean, it's like George Clooney, right? Everybody.
Yeah, sure.
Who joins me here and on Substack, and again, was the thing you can always do, folks, in life, if you want to have something that goes well, is recruit somebody more talented than you. And he can shake his head all he wants and whatever. More talent, more experience. David Schuster, Emmy Award winner at MSNBC and CNN.
Cliff, we all have our talents, and we also all have things that we are not so good at. So.
Well, I told you, apparently holding on to a fob is something I'm not good at. So don't give me that. Now I want to introduce Kristen, who I'm so excited to have here. What she's doing with Fair Share USA, I'm going to let her tell you more about it. But whether it's taking the bus to town halls, showing up, speaking out against the BBB bill, the best bit. I'm sorry, I'm not going to even say what that stands for, because it's stupid, like the person who made it up. And she's going around trying to, we'll let her tell you some more about whether it's getting it repealed, fighting back on Medicaid, fighting back on SNAP, fighting back on all these kinds of things that the predator class I spoke about wants us all to be in hock to them for. Welcome, Kristen, and thank you for being here.
No, thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it is absolutely my pleasure. I know you caught the end of what I was saying. Hopefully that didn't take things a little too far for you.
Not for me. You're channeling exactly the sentiment that's coming from the ground right now. I'm dialing in from Scranton, Pennsylvania this afternoon, and we were at a town hall last night with nearly 200 people, standing room only, and people are angry about what is going on in this country, and they are desperate to fight back and desperate to do anything they can to hold the line and put this administration and the Republican members of Congress on notice that we're not taking it anymore. Full stop. We are not taking it anymore.
Well, good.
Kristen, your organization, Fair Share USA, has been driven in part, I think, from what I've read, by the growing wealth gap between wealthy and poor, and the idea that the wealthy are essentially contributing less and less, and the rest of us are having to contribute more. For a long time, it seemed like it was sort of orthodoxy that, oh, there's no way we can raise taxes on the wealthy. But it feels like that's changing. What are you picking up in your work?
It's absolutely shifted. And the shift started several years ago. I've been doing tax campaign work for nearly 15 years. I ran the Massachusetts Millionaires Campaign, which successfully implemented a surtax on income over $1 million, generating $6 billion in new resources for public education and transportation. That was done by the will of the voters. And folks understand that this is a big grift, that the billionaire class is taking more of our tax dollars that we pay in off of our work and are running up a score of endless greed that seems to have no bounds. And they get it. And regardless of who folks voted for 9 months ago, we see that this is a true populist uprising. And I've been an organizer almost 30 years. I have never seen anything like this.
Wow. I mean, that's the thing, Kristen, is that is my concern. And I'm not a good actor. So luckily for me, I actually really am angry, though I will fit in humor here and there because I'm also not a good actor. So I make jokes when they pop up. But my point is that if I'm that way, right? And I always consider myself kind of, I'm sorry, I keep getting binged. I have to turn that off. But I consider myself sort of, standard, pretty liberal guy, social democrat, in what I believed. But I am at a point now where I'm looking at, every proposal from the last, I don't know how many years, like AOC speaking about a 70% tax on every dollar over, 10 million. And I'm sort of like, why not 90? But certainly 70. I'm looking at, Elizabeth Warren talking about a wealth tax. I'm trying to remember what it was, 2%, 3% on wealth over $50 million. I'm like, why not 5 or 10? I've had it. And I know enough about history as a near PhD who could not write their dissertation, but studied all this stuff to know, the Gilded Age comparisons, the ridiculousness of the situation we're in, the amount of control, the wealth. So I guess what I'm saying is I understand sort of where you are, what you're seeing, but how do we put that into practice to actually get the change that we want?
Well, first of all, we have to build. We're building the demand. The demand is out there. Frankly, I think it's one of the challenges that myself and other organizers are really grappling with, which is, can we continue to give enough activities to the folks that are turning out that feel sufficient for the moment? And one of that is to be bold, to be unapologetic about what are the policy changes that we know work. We know that taxing wealth, taxing corporations, let's put it all back on the table. This is the second round of failed Trump economic policies, another tax giveaway. Let's repeal the whole damn thing and put in policies that reflect our values and deliver for working people. Full stop. It's as simple as that. And the work that's being done all across the country, and Fair Share America, I've been on a bus tour that kicked off on June 21st. We've gone over 8,000 miles, over 40 events. It is regardless of what corner of the country you're in, if you're in a liberal city, if you're in a tiny red city, this is the sentiment. And I'm hoping that Washington politicians who are gearing up their campaigns and the consultants that will run them understand the moment that we're in, because it is not, we have to be bold. We have to do something different. or everyone loses credibility. Like if you're not with working people right now and pushing something bold, you don't have credibility. And it doesn't matter what party you're representing. They are angry and they are coming for something different.
The argument that we've heard so often from Republicans, conservatives, the wealthy class is that, oh, well, when you give tax cuts to the wealthy, that somehow helps stimulate the economy because the money somehow trickles down. Never mind, of course, that if you give tax breaks to somebody who already has a lot of money, there's no guarantee that they take that money and actually spend it on the economy. They could put it in their mattress, they could put it in a bank, they could put it overseas. So there's no guarantee they actually do circulate that money into the economy. In terms of policies, though, is there a particular policy that you have seen, aside from what's happened in Massachusetts and other places, where there has been this incentive built into either the tax code or just in society in general to get people to take money and circulate it back into the economy, if that is in fact the argument?
I mean, that argument has been a broken record. And when it comes up in town halls, there's a universal like laugh out loud. When you say trickle down economics, people just laugh. They're like, yes, it has not rained down. I mean, we saw with the jobs report that came out a couple of days ago, this is not creating new jobs. We know that.
I mean, that wasn't the Bureau of Labor Statistics' fault for making up. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Go ahead.
No, but it's people see this for what it is. And, you know, we're going to cut the corporate rate and that will somehow drive down prices. That's a joke. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money they extract from us. The cost of living goes up. The industries are, the regulation on the environment, that trying to get to a better, cleaner economy, our utilities are going up. I mean, there was a town hall in Tucson, Arizona, a couple nights ago, where one of these big data centers is coming. There were 1,000 people that turned out screaming, like, we don't want these big data centers ruining our environment and further extracting us. Like, we're done being extracted from. And the public doesn't buy it anymore. So it's laughable to me as they're trying to use their same old talking points. Like the GOP is trying to spin this and the public is just absolutely not buying it, which gives me hope that we are in a different place to put it all back on the table.
I'd like to say quickly to give David credit here. We have our friend Sirius here. So this is the same thing that broke Greece. And David just wrote a column at our Substack comparing, he's like, if you want to see the future of where we're headed, if we let this happen, take a look at Greece or Argentina. And that was exactly correct. So great point, both of you. And Lefty Gramps, my friend here, who's also in Ohio, Kristen, I'm based in Cincinnati, makes the point about how data centers are destroying Ohio, power bills. And I mean, so, I mean, this is the thing, because I am a good Democrat. I was a Democratic consultant for years. I still sort of am, even though friends come to me now, stuff like that. But I wrote ads for Biden. I felt like I thought we defeated Trump forever in 2020. I was like, hey, I wrote ads for Biden. This seems like a good time to walk away and sort of go after the other side of my passion, which is, writing about politics, talking about it, that kind of thing. Oops, sorry. Yeah, it seems we didn't defeat him forever. But, my concern is that, and I'm so glad that I heard you talk about the consultants, because even though I was one or am one or whatever I am, and I will relate out there and rip into it. I mean, if they don't understand the moment we're in, if they do not take a look at what happened in New York and Minneapolis and these places with mayoral candidates, if they don't look at with the anger that's showing up these places, and they don't get that these aren't normal, like, let's manage the anger and sort of, move a little bit over here. People have this is not working for people. They are not able to. So how do we get across to that class of folks that this cannot be? If we were to run, an FDR type campaign, which is why I wrote that piece in 26, I mean, the majorities we would win would be they'd be unheard of since then. If we run some tepid, wimpy, whatever, how do we get that message across? Or maybe we're doing it right now. I don't know. But
I hope they're listening. And I would say come sit in any town hall meeting they're going to keep happening. I mean, the genie's out of the bottle. Voters are
Can I just say also one more thing? I don't want to interrupt you, but the thing I meant to say is what scares me is if we don't, they will. With their right, you already see it with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson, who are playing on some right-wing populism, tying debt to international aid, but they talk a lot about debt and credit card bills and whatever. If we don't do this, if we act tepid, they'll go around us and it could be a disaster. So I'm sorry, I should have said that. Let me let you talk.
I mean, we watched Josh Hawley go after the CEO of Boeing, saying this is your fault. I mean, they're not idiots, and that there is a populist movement, and Steve Bannon has given advice that they're going to lose the majority by 40 seats if they don't play in this terrain. So you're 100% right, Cliff. Like, we've got to understand the moment we're in. And one thing that I've heard in the last 72 hours out of friends in Washington is like this move that they're hearing some folks in the Democratic Party talk about, we need bipartisanship. And right. And so it's just like, can we
make that word illegal?
Thank you. Because this is not the time for that.
Kristen, we talk a lot about sort of messaging. Yeah. What's been the most successful or resonating message that you've seen? Is it, hey, raise taxes on the wealthy, taxes on billionaires? Is it, how do you make the wealthy pay more or contribute more into society and do it in a message that resonates with people?
Honestly, the simple tax the rich right now. I mean, we saw in a Republican town hall 2 nights ago in Nebraska, organically, red voters screaming tax the rich when Congressman Flood said, well, we can't afford healthcare. We can't afford to pay for this. It's simple. And then in the last 3 nights, we've heard, last night here in Scranton, the whole room was screaming, repeal the whole damn thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that has got to be, the bar that we set. How fast can we repeal the whole thing? And we work backwards, and we build campaigns, we build narratives that allow folks to voice their anger, and that we're doing something constructive. We're not tinkering on the margins. We're not looking for a study or a committee or a bipartisan solution. We're saying, no, this whole thing was heinous. Not a single Democrat voted for it. So let's repeal it as fast as we can and use that as the fuel to engage this movement in a productive way. That's not just about winning the next election, because frankly, that's another thing. They don't want to hear about just the next election. They're like, what are we going to do? If we vote for you, it better be for real. It better be for substance.
Right.
So I hope as folks are thinking about running for office, they're also paying attention to that. This is not a game where we're just looking for the 50+1 and we just want to get through the next election. People are demanding action and as fast as possible.
Well, let me put it to both of you, both because Cliff has advised campaigns and because you've run them. Let's suppose somebody stands up and says to somebody who wants to run for Congress or whatever, hey, I am, to use Cliff's point, I am $500 away from economic ruin. If my car gets hit by somebody and I have to pay something, if I have some unexpected medical bill, I will declare bankruptcy. How do I get out of this? What can you as a member of Congress or a government do to solve my problem? What's the best answer?
I don't know. I don't want to jump in. Cliff, do you want to go first? Or do you?
I would say, well, I don't know. Should I go first? I'm being a little impolite.
It's tough.
Listen, from my perspective, I would say to them, what we have isn't working right now. So I don't know what we would do for you. There probably are programs, either federal or state, that can help you. But that shouldn't be the way it should be. You shouldn't be under that anxiety. It's why I wrote that piece when I came back from Italy, where people were just happy. And medical bankruptcy was a term nobody ever heard. And, it just shouldn't even be a word. So what would be my thing? I would say to message like an actual authentic human and say, do you want to worry about these things? Do you think so Elon Musk can get another yacht or maybe get 50 feet added onto this one, that you should have to worry if you can afford healthcare? You should have to worry if you can pay for childcare. And I wouldn't just even talk to the most, as the point I made in my rant at the beginning, if they turn us against each other, that's how they win. And so, folks, we have to realize that there are people who many of us would consider to be doing very well who make a couple $100,000 a year, who are scared because they don't have health care, who can't afford to send their kids to college and all these things. And we need to incorporate them into what we're doing because they're being screwed by the same people. So what I would say to somebody without $500 is I would say, because the only thing I worry about, Kristen, is when we say tax the rich, well, then the Republicans get to define it and say, well, Democrats consider you rich if you make $15,000 a year. I would say tax the billionaires. Break up the monopolies, tax the billionaires. They're easy messages. They're straightforward. Tax the corporations, tax the big corporations, or if you want to get even tax the multinational conglomerates, whatever. I mean, to me, it's very simply, this is a ridiculous system, ridiculous that nobody ever would have imagined to be any good. You with your $500 debt, it shouldn't be a worry. You see Elon Musk, you see Jeff Bezos and his $40 million wedding. Tax them at the rate we used to tax them in the 1950s, all taken care of.
And I would put something else on the table, which is like, let's talk about the minimum wage and raising that to $20 or $25. I mean, there has to be a way for folks. People in this country want to work. They want dignity. They don't want to be on the margins. I talk about this when we're out in the town hall setting, but my experience as a single mom 20 years ago, it was an $886 dental bill that sent us into financial ruin. And I think we're also creating space where we can actually talk about these things without the stigma and the shame, because we feel like when you're in that position, you feel like you did something wrong. And we all want to provide for our families and for our neighbors. And this system, I would say the system is rigged against you currently. Like you are not a crazy person to feel like you can go to work, you can work 2 jobs and not make it. And we've got to take on the whole system, which does mean, taking on corporations, breaking up monopolies, and means paying us a fair wage. It's making things like childcare and healthcare affordable and accessible. And there's no reason we can't do it. We've seen more billionaires created since the pandemic, which is bananas, where most families, since the pandemic, most families haven't fully recovered. And we've had more billionaire growth in this country than anywhere else on the globe. And we need to take it on. And they have more money that they can spend in their lifetime. So need not pity them. They will be fine. They will be fine.
And I want to address something related to that I've seen in the chat here. I've seen you guys talking about the student loan situation, and yeah, that is a scam. I'm not advocating for that. What I'm advocating for is what our parents' generation, heck, even me, when I went to college, the university I went to was 3 times as expensive as it was back then now. What I'm advocating for is a situation where there aren't such a thing as college loans. I mean, maybe little ones, small ones. Hey, you need an extra $1,000 or something of that nature, $500. But I'm talking about, a situation where state schools go back to what they used to be, which is so affordable, so cheap. Again, what I experienced when I was in Italy, where all of the schools cost between 500 and 4,000 euro. And if you want to translate euro, the day I was there, it's probably a little different now. That was a $4,665 cap on the top end. That was your top end is what you would pay at that point. So that's what I'm advocating for. And if private institutions want to keep being ludicrous and raising them, don't go there. I mean, I still think we should have laws that should manage that. But if we can make sure that public schools are affordable for everybody, I mean, my gosh, there used to be, when I was, even me, 90s, right, going to college, I remember UCLA cost something like $1,000 or $2,000 a semester. I mean, there were plenty of states that had schools that were that affordable. Terrific school here in Ohio, where my son is going, older son's going to be going, Miami of Ohio, is still one of the better ones in terms of how much it costs. But it's still under 20,000. But back then, I think it was about 8 or 9, maybe 7. I mean, this is what we should be looking to getting back to. So that's what I would say to you guys talking about college loans. I'm not saying, hey, let's load the system up. Let's get people more money so they can dump more into and get into more debt. No, that's not what we want. We need to end that damn system, because it doesn't exist that I'm aware of in any other Western democracy anywhere. that this kind of garbage happens, that you have to start off life or your work life in that kind of debt. I just wanted to make that clear. Can I ask you something quickly, Kristen? Well, we have some time here, but I want you, I don't want to take time from you, David, but I do want to know this. I've always thought that we have been too shy about using, these state measures, right? Ballot measures. The right wing has used them so effectively. We've started doing more of that recently. But if I remember correctly, I looked up at the time, there's something like either 24 to 26 states that have some form of this. Wouldn't that be a way to show that there is massive support for this? I know they would do what they would do here in Ohio. What they would do is the Secretary of State would get a hold of it and try to change all the language around to trick everybody, like they did with an ungerrymandering measure, because they are cretins. But this would be a really hard one for them to trick people on, and maybe keep it to start off by keeping it to the most egregious cases. Maybe say, a ballot measure that there's going to be a state tax on if you make over $10 million a year. We're charging an extra 20% on that, whatever it might be, right? I mean, is there would that be a way in a number of states, particularly states like this one that are not blue and sadly not even purple anymore, to show that there's support for that and maybe push Congress to act?
Well, there's a number of states that are looking at putting proactive revenue measures, protects the rich measures on the ballot. So that is a strategy that our state partners are looking at. I know Ohio is one where you almost have to go to the ballot in order to do anything.
Yeah, our state legislature is a cruel joke.
Absolutely. But then there are a number of states that, like my state, I'm from Wisconsin, we don't have the ability to go to the ballot. And so it is about having multiple tactics and strategies on the board at all times. And we have to be, pushing our federal members of Congress. But right now the states are going to have to absorb massive hits, thinking about how are they going to take care of the folks that will lose healthcare and food assistance. So we all have to be creative. And I think, putting it all on the table, whichever way you can. There's a number of states that have a constitutionally mandated flat tax. So we just have to be really smart about, there's not at the state level a one size fit all.
No, there never is. Right.
There are a lot of options.
I just meant if we had a couple examples of it, right? 5 or 6 or 8 of these things passed, it helps send that message that, this is what people want. That's kind of my thinking. That's all.
Kristen, I want to get back to something you mentioned earlier, and that it struck me that in your 30 years of doing this, you've never seen people so riled up, such a groundswell of sort of anger and frustration and wanting things to change as deeply as exists now. What are you picking up in terms of, do Democrats generally also recognize that, or do we have this issue now where you have, some of the Democrats, some of the progressives are like, let's go big. The political support and will is behind it. And then you have the more establishment Democrats are like, no, we're a little afraid. And where do you see it?
I mean, you can just read the reactions to the New York mayor's race. It underscores they don't get it. Mm-hmm. What he's pushing around affordable living and housing and is not radical by any stroke of the imagination, way outside of big blue liberal cities. So the fact that Democrats are having that debate about, is that too far? Is that too liberal? That's ridiculous. Come out to a town hall, come out to somewhere where you don't expect it, and come sit with us, because I think folks that have not left their safe bubbles would be deeply surprised by what's going on. And also it's super hopeful. I think it's also easy to fall into everything has gone to hell and this is so terrible and we don't have agency. No, you go sit go out with the American public right now. It is the most hopeful place to be. The energy to do something different and to work together is, like I said, it's something I've never seen. And I think we have to really work to be sufficient to meet the moment. And not trivialize what their experience is, and not ask them to do dumb stuff. Like, this is a moment to invite folks really in to be part of the planning and strategy, and not minimize what they're going through.
On a federal level, and there've been people pointing out some of those stuff for years. This is why I always, to me, I mean, Trump has put all of the worst aspects of American society on crack, for lack of a better expression. But Reagan is that dividing line where we went from believing in all of us to this selfish, just what's good for me. I think it helped create the anti-vax movement. I think it helped create the gun nut movement, because everything's about me. It doesn't matter what happens to anybody else. So I saw, and I believe it's Damon A, if it was you, in the chat there, because I was going to ask this question anyhow. So I appreciate you put this out there. I did some work for one of the few, and this is why I always say to people, there are some good billionaires. I did some work for Nick Hanauer in the past, who's a terrific guy and an economic populist. He actually was one of the original investors in Amazon, because he knew Jeff Bezos in high school, and I don't think has spoken to him in years, and left early on. With not Bezos kind of money, just a lot more money than any of us could ever imagine. And one of the big things when I was doing some work for him that he was arguing, in favor of, which a lot of people don't know, is pre-1982, it was illegal for companies to do stock buybacks. And we're having this conversation right now about making it illegal for members of Congress to trade stocks without, which I believe is ridiculous that doesn't exist. Like, we have an insider trading law, except this large group of people. But when it comes to that, it used to be defined as market manipulation, which it is. And when so you've got extra cash on hand, you're a company, you're doing great. Gee, we could pay our workers, or we all have stock options that benefit if stock goes way up. I wonder what I'm going to do. Do you think that's the kind of thing that could resonate, that we should fight on? Is that a message point we could win on that you think people would understand? Because it's gross is what it is.
Yes. People, absolutely, we should run on that and talk about it and go after it. People do understand that the system's rigged, that if you have money and power, you're constantly thinking about how to further enrich yourself and screw over your workers or working people, or, this grift. And there's no other way to talk about it. The BBB is the largest grift in American history of taking our tax dollars to further enrich the billionaire class. Folks totally get it, and we can talk about it. They get it. And if to not talk about it and to not be clear about the reality that most Americans are living with, it's like gaslighting them. They know this is crazy. This is all rigged. They know that no matter what they do, billionaires and corporations are rigging the system, and they're getting away with it. So we have to tell them that's actually true, and this is how it's happening. And
this is an example, you mean? Because again, all the other stuff, of course, I want to say to them. I just, I don't know how much financial literacy everybody has in terms of stock buybacks and all of that. And so I want messages that resonate so people get how they're being screwed.
It's a really good one.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. I sort of wonder if there's also maybe some sort of argument about, never mind our own sort of personal financial anxieties, but our anxiety about whether this country can continue to exist. I mean, if you go back through history, and Cliff, I guess you would know this better than anybody, every sort of great empire has collapsed when the difference between wealthy and the middle class, when the middle class keeps shrinking and shrinking, and the wealth gap gets to a certain point, societies stop functioning.
Yeah. Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis, by the way, had a famous quote about that. He said, you can either have a vast disparity in wealth, or you can have a democracy. You can't have both. That was Louis Brandeis's quote. But to kick it, go ahead, David. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, so I wonder, the argument can also be, look, in terms of, if you want American society to continue to function, never mind all of our personal anxieties and financial problems and exposure to bankruptcy if we get unexpected bills, but as a nation, our nation cannot survive this, right?
Yeah. No, I think.
Go ahead, Kristen.
No, go ahead.
No, I think he was asking you, so I didn't want to jump in. I don't know if you had something you wanted to add to that.
I think there's a lot of anxiety about what's about to happen to this country. And so I definitely think it's part of the conversation, and it still needs to address the how is this going to impact your life? I think we cannot, the pain that folks are in, the folks that are standing up at our town halls and telling their stories about what may happen to them if they lose their health coverage. I mean, we had a quadriplegic man in Iowa, in Cedar Rapids. His name is Garrett. He's been paralyzed since he's been 4. He's like, I might die. I mean, the anxiety about just surviving what they've done to us is enormous. We met a young mom with her baby who's 5 months old. She makes too much money to qualify for Medicare and food assistance. She's a 5-month-old baby who's uninsured in this country while she's working right now. So it's hard. Like, I think, David, to your point, there are folks where it's like, yes, this country, how will we survive this? And then for some folks, I think it's just too big. Like, it's like, I can't even worry about whether America survives. I'm not sure if I'm going to live. And that's the desperation that folks are in right now. We're talking about 17 million people losing health coverage. It's a scale that's like hard to really put in words. And so, again, going back to the consultant class and the politicians that are emerging, like you really need to take it in, and preferably you'd come from us. You'd come from working people, and you'd understand this intimately, and not be trying to speak on behalf of folks, that you would really be able to walk the walk. And I think that's what it requires, is a really different kind of politics right now.
Yeah. And can I say, I can't stand this sort of when people after a campaign, everybody does this in sports too, right? If you win, you did everything right. If you lost, you did everything wrong. 107 days, Kamala Harris's campaign was one of the most effective I've ever seen. They were aggressive. They hit hard, mocking Trump and using sort of the kind of responses and attacks. I think were they perfect at everything? No, I don't think they embraced certain digital platforms enough. I'm not going to, but when everybody tries to say, oh my God, she messed it up. People were walking away post-COVID from status quo parties. And that was the point I wanted to make here, which is we absolutely cannot run as the protectors of the status quo. We have to attack the status quo. And again, I'm sorry, I'm not just trying to push this one piece, but it was one of the things I put everything I thought into this one on channeling FDR. FDR didn't come in and say, all right, I get it. 25% of you unemployed, but it's going pretty well. We'll get around. We'll get there. He didn't just say, oh, the institutions are working. There were some that were working, and he bolstered those. There were others that weren't working, and he either challenged them, like the Supreme Court, or he trashed them, and ones he could, and he got rid of. And then he created all sorts of new institutions, the Social Security Administration, the Workers' Progress Administration, these kinds of things. To me, this is that moment. If we don't run on creating new, the institutions that have been successful, run on bolstering them and making them stronger. But on the ones that clearly have failed us, we need to run on creating a whole set of new institutions. Throw that, the era of big government crap is over, out the window. Republicans are the ones, by the way, who've brought us big government. They're now dictating to all of us, from women with their bodies to corporations and what they say, what all of us can do, and run on something that challenges the status quo and says, we get what you're going through, because this isn't working. And frankly, it wasn't working when Mitch McConnell was hijacking the Supreme Court and launching money into races. It wasn't working when Newt Gingrich was training his people on how to attack Democrats. Like, this has been a long time thing that Donald Trump is just the final symptom and worst embodiment of. And I feel like we need to make a generational argument for we need to head in an entirely different direction and give those examples of what it is. Am I a crazy person, or am I making any sense? Or both?
I think right now it requires us to think completely different and to throw out the blueprint that we've been raised on in terms of how to win campaigns and what is the right messaging. I mean, how I've fought for years, Democrats around that we need middle class tax cuts, that was the conventional wisdom, that you can't say tax the rich. Now that's the mainstream. And one thing I did want to offer one suggestion, and it's a little bit of a critique to the Harris campaign.
Okay.
And that is like billionaires like Mark Cuban were propped up as the economic advisors, or the ones helping write the policies. Let's have regular people propped up to be advisors to campaigns. We know what it's like for, like, I would love for some of the folks, let's ask them the questions, let them give advice. Is this a good policy? Does it work in practice in your life? And,
like, bring in farmers and ranchers and small business owners and
exactly.
Right. And I'll say, I've got, I know Mark Cuban a little bit. I do think he's a good person, but
Great.
I don't think I fully agree with what you're saying. And again, I wasn't saying there shouldn't be any critiques of Kamala Harris's campaign. There can be, and you're right. You can't just be like, he's a billionaire, he's successful, he's my advisor. Why not have some people in there speaking for all these other folks?
And speaking of who's speaking on behalf of who, there's one other piece to all of this that gives me heartburn, and that is, I agree. I think most Americans would support taxing the wealthy, would support raising the minimum wage. The polling shows that. I think most Americans would even support a financial, a tax on every Wall Street trade, as Bernie Sanders was. The concern that I have is our political system still
functioning
enough so that a strong majority of people who support this can get it through, because I feel like our political system has become so corrupted that we know all the billionaire class and the corporations, the people who might have to pay a little more, will exercise their lobbying and their muscles and be able to gum up things in Congress. And I feel like so much of the frustration is not just that we have these horrible policies, but that the policies so many of us agree on, we can't jam it through this political system that is corrupt. And maybe I'm a little more of a pessimist than an optimist on that. I'm curious, Kristen, where you are on that.
Depends on how I wake up in the morning. I mean, honestly, the reality is hard. And we are going to have to build something very different. And I think that also means building a coalition that's going to take on, I think there has to be taking on Democrats as well as Republicans. I mean, this is not,
I agree.
We saw with this bill that Democrats held the line, and that is incredible. That not a single Democrat voted for this. And we now have to continue to ask, and so what? What is the vision for something different? What is the vision for not just tinkering on the margins and going really hard? And I think there's going to be several election cycles where voters are going to have to stick together and force that. Because we're seeing this happening right with the gerrymandering. And if you don't like the politics, if Donald Trump is watching this and he's worried that he's going to lose the
in
House
his pajamas with Cheeto dust on his fingers.
Right. So I'm going to lose the House majority, so I'll just order up another 5 congressional districts to be drawn for me. Like, I think we're in very difficult times, and I think we have to continue to demand better and hold it together as the base of folks, the big majority that can actually take this on. But I think that Washington business as usual, and the folks that haven't left, DC in the last 5 months to go see what's happening have a clue? I don't. And I would invite them to really get into it with us and see it.
And David, that I fully understand what you're saying, because I have my good days and bad days on these things too. It's why I almost feel like you have to go around them. And the only way you can go around them is by being so bold, by creating. I mean, they spent that money against Mamdani. They've spent that money against other folks. My point is, if you run this tepid, you being one, not you being you, this tepid kind of campaign of, well, we'll help you a little bit here. We'll give you a tax credit for your health care and that kind of thing. Here's what will happen. The billionaires will still demonize you because they don't want to lose anything. And people will be like, okay, this sucks. And they'll be done. If you run this bold, we are going to change things in enormous ways. That is the only thing I've ever seen overcome big money. I've seen it with ballot measures in states. I've seen it with legislation in Washington at times. There are just moments where there is such an outpouring. After a number, and it wasn't nearly enough, don't get me wrong, but somebody worked on gun safety after that outpouring, that number of shootings that happened. Even Mitch McConnell felt he had to bring forward a bill that actually did close 2 pretty bad loopholes, because he felt like they would, with all the money on their side, they were going to take massive losses unless they did something. And so I feel like it has to be that kind of an uprising where they feel the power of, okay, we got all these billionaires putting up ads for us, but it's hard to change somebody's mind with your ads if their kids are starving, if they don't have health care, if their farm just crashed. I mean, we talked to Hallie Schaffner, who's running in Arkansas, who's just fantastic, a real farmer, 6th generation. They destroyed her farm with what they did. So now she's taking on Tom Cotton. And normally in a normal election, you're like, absolutely no chance. This election year, with this genuine, regular person, a farmer, the kind of person that should have been an advisor on a campaign like that, who knows all about this stuff, who speaks like a regular person and goes after the Democratic establishment for abandoning Arkansas too, and points out that Tom Cotton voted against both farm bills. I think that can change some things. So
I think so too. I think so too.
Well, so tell us quickly. We always run late because that's what we do here. Because we like talking to people. Please let us know, where can people best find you? Where can they support your work? What can we do to support you? And how can we take power away from Republicans and make them psychologically suffer in ways I haven't even thought of yet?
So it's fairshareusa.org is the website. Sign up. We send out weekly updates in terms of events happening all over the country to plug into. You can follow us on all the socials. And we're still driving this bus for the rest of the week. We've got 3 more stops. A lot of good stories and content coming out. Again,
where are you headed so people maybe can show up?
We are going to be in Ottumwa, Iowa tomorrow night. We have a stop in Janesville. We're actually stopping to walk the picket line with UAW 95, who have 130 employers on strike. 4th week on the strike line because corporate hospitals are refusing to do minor wage and safety.
That's Wisconsin, right?
Wisconsin, Janesville, Wisconsin.
Am I remembering correctly? That's where Paul Ryan is from in Wisconsin?
That was his district, yeah.
So go say hi to Paul Ryan, everybody, while you're there, and remind him that his whole economic theory sucked. Sorry, go ahead.
And then we end in Oshkosh. So we're ending in my home state. We're taking on Ron Johnson, who actually offered an amendment at one point from the Senate floor to make this whole thing worse. And that
Did he offer it in Russian or English? Sorry. Go ahead.
But Oshkosh is a place that's historically been more conservative. And when we had an event earlier in the summer, I mean, this brings out veterans and doctors and small business. And so it's, like I said, there's space in this movement for everyone. And that's what we are trying to build and sustain, is a real pro-tax fairness movement.
That is awesome. And
well, Kristen, it has been an honor having you on. And I love the work that you're doing at Fair Share. And to learn that there's this wonderful organization that is credible, pushing taxing the wealthy, getting them to pay more, of course. So congratulations on everything you've done so far, and let us know what we can do to help.
Please reach out and let us know if we can help amplify because you're doing.
We will definitely be in touch, and I'd love to stay in touch. We're planning to be possibly in Texas, Alaska, and other states over the rest of the fall. So we're not going anywhere, not backing down for this fight, and excited to share this with your viewership. So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for giving us your time, and actually for getting on a bus and driving around the country. We've done it. Those of us who've done that before know it's not easy. And so thanks so much for fighting for what's right and what we need.
Thank you.
Take care, and we'll be in touch and send you some clips and all sorts of fun stuff.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Care. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
And Cliff, I think, she talked about going to other states. Here in Connecticut, there's a lot of wealthy people here in Connecticut. And I have to say, when they had the No Kings Day protests a couple months ago, the crowds were massive.
Yeah.
And you can see sign after sign after sign about these sort of issues, the wealthy, the elite class, and need to pay more. And it's not just about, the tyranny of Trump. And so to Kristen's point, I think there was an appetite all over this country to reset, to change things, to get rid of this ridiculous bill that just passed, to make the billionaires pay more, contribute more to our education, to our medical bills, et cetera, et cetera. The appetite is there. The question is, can we summon the political will of our elected lawmakers?
Well, I just want to remind people, because again, I fall into these things too, but nobody, and I mean nobody, in the late 50s or early 60s thought there was a civil rights bill passing in 64. And it was the people who outside the system went and made noise and showed up and did everything needed to do. So, and the folks inside the system felt they had to get it done. Yeah, we needed LBJ to sway, probably threaten a few people and do whatever he did too. But the point is still the same. which is, we can get these things done. We need various tactics like ballot initiatives, like passing stuff that's far more progressive in certain states where we have a trifecta, fighting back on gerrymandering. I mean, that's given me made me feel very good, because I was like, are we just going to cave again? I had faith in that Newsom would do it. I had faith that Pritzker would do it. I'm going to be honest, as original New Yorker, I wasn't so sure about Kathy Hochul, who can be pretty milquetoast. And even she has stood up and made clear that other people are ending up on the other side of that divide from them that are not historically people that were very radical. And I think they've created this, and we need to harness it. And we will not, if we do this tepid bullshit where we sort of say tax credits here and a little bit difference there. No, this whole fucking thing, just in a whole new overarching system, and let them label it however the hell they will, and hit them back. And I don't mean physically, but just nail them back when they try to fight with you about it. It used to be the easiest thing in the world on healthcare with any member of Congress. Excuse me, who pays for your healthcare? Congresswoman or congressman? So just honestly shut the fuck up. I mean, that's what I would say to their faces. Pay for your own or shut the fuck up. I get it that people can't really say it that way and have to be a little bit nicer about it, or at least cleaner. We don't want to be profane like me, because it's much more profane to curse than it is to starve a child, clearly. But yeah, I'm glad we had that talk. As you can tell, I'm in a bit of a mood because I just keep reading more about what these people are doing, and it sickens me to my core.
I'm with you.
You got to go because you've got a kid.
Kid duty. Another great show, Cliff. Well done.
David, thank you for being here.
Thanks everybody for watching.
You're awesome. Thank you for being here. A lot of people said during the chat, they were like, it's David. He's famous. There's a lot of David Schuster fans. I'm just telling you, it did. I'm not lying. I will get those screenshots.
There are really no famous people in the world of television news or broadcasting. It's also.
What about Jake Tapper?
That would be infamous.
There you go. Thank you, David. Seriously.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. Take care. All right, guys. I was gonna do another rant at the end here, because Donald Trump, you've heard of him? He's sort of this weird, smelly, overgrown, corpulent creature with piss cotton candy hair, and that's the good side of him. He is right now, of course, is not only lying about everything, but he is getting angry because he is being taunted by South Park. And I want to give the South Park guys credit and say, this is what we need to do. Okay, I get it. They have a lot of money. They have a contract. They're much safer than us. I'm not claiming we're all the same in this. But as you know, they made that episode on purpose, sort of saying Donald Trump, sue us, where they showed Donald Trump's baby penis talking, and he was fat and, all that stuff. They know how to get to him. It's not that hard to figure out. And Trump responded by screaming, yelling, and threatening to sue them. They're like, good, sue us. And they have a deal with Paramount, which is just great. So the Trump people's response was to say, well, South Park isn't important. They haven't been relevant in years. Yes. Clearly, Pam Bondi, very relevant. You picked her for a good reason. Dan Bongino, hugely relevant. But no, not them. So what they, of course, being that this is the most incompetent and stupid, and, they don't talk to each other because they're all morons and they're all the lowest dregs of the garbage, empty a whiskey barrel and it's the crud at the bottom. And they didn't sort of get it that their own team had insulted them. So they sent out a tweet that said that tried to recruit for ICE. I'm not kidding you, using a South Park image. Well, you don't do that to the South Park guys because they have fun with stuff like this. So the team behind South Park on Tuesday sent an unfiltered message to Homeland Security after the agency used a screenshot to show it to recruit agents for ICE. Eat a bag of dicks was their message, which that should maybe become our mantra towards them too. Since it was on X, it was a hashtag eat a bag of dicks. You may want to use that if you're on X from now on, or really anywhere else. And they decided to make a whole nother episode about ICE and what ICE is doing. And, what's her face, dog shooter McKee shows up Christy Nome likes to take puppies and shoot them in the head because that's what normal non-sociopaths do. They mock her, and they grab this, this image that these guys had used, these losers, the South Park guys, and showed it and said, wait, so are we relevant now? And of course, with eat a bag of dicks, and mocked them. To which Trump lost it even more. And that is the trailer for the upcoming episode. It also shows Trump once again with Satan, this time at dinner, trying to feel him up under the table. Again, this stuff gets Trump really upset, and it's why you need to do it. Stop, Satan says, and pushes the animated Trump's hand away. And there were screenshots. So they're doing this. And as they're doing this, I would like to also point out to you that Donald Trump is losing his mind more and more. Where's the media on this? Where are Democrats on this? I've called out corporate media so often, and so that I'm going to stick to the Democrats now. I just gave the example of South Park. They've called him out and went after him. But Colbert now is like on a tear, and he might as well be. You've got folks, and they are, that's not media, but they're people in the media, and it's important. But why, when this man sits there and talks about farmers, farm laborers that are Hispanic, Latino, and said, they do really good work. It doesn't seem to hurt their backs. They seem to be made for this work. Yes, if you're Latino, you're made for farm work, according to the stylings and really sort of intelligent eugenics research of Donald Trump. And even made a point of saying, he's like, they do this work and they tell me they could die. Isn't that interesting? That's what all normal people would think when people tell them they could die from work isn't that interesting? Now, if Joe Biden had said this, old, crazy, demented, but here's the thing, the media may not do it, but where are we on it? Where are Democrats on it? Where are and I'm going to start going after even independent creators eventually who are not doing enough of this. The ones that claim that they're here for everybody, but seem to be just out to pad their bottom line. But let's start with actual sort of the Democratic Party message on this. The man just went out. Remember, what's one of the biggest groups that you lost? They were Latinos. What's one of the biggest groups that he's now losing that he gained during the election? Latinos, pissed off watching the heartlessness with which he is treating relatives, friends, people who are like them. So really, it was easy in the abstract for some folks to vote for Trump. And now they're seeing it enacted. They're seeing it. They're seeing a teenager thrown to the ground. Hey, you have no rights here, amigo. It turns out he was a U.S. citizen. We did a video on that, and you may have seen that. We also did a Substack on that. And I'm going to remind you while I'm saying this, please subscribe at Cliffs_Edge at YouTube. We're almost at 125,000 subscribers. We're going to get our message out further. We need you to do it. And please subscribe at Blue Amp, where we have close to 600,000, and we are growing, and we are being covered by the media, and we can make a difference. Okay. But this is going on. Constant sort of this stupid old man racism. And I don't care if that's what he really thought, maybe, but if he weren't demented, he would have the ability to not say things like that. And he doesn't. So come on. Why is there not Democrats standing up in the Senate right now, calling for him to be censured? Why are there not Democrats right now in the House doing similar things? Why aren't Democrats around the country referring to him as a racist constantly and pointing this out and tying it into his love for billionaires and his hate for everybody else? Because there really aren't very many Black and Latino billionaires, I hate to tell you. There's a couple. Tie it into your messaging. Attack. He is a racist. He is a scumbag. He obviously sees Latino people as below him. He's acting like he was Jane Goodall, and he was out in with gorillas. That's the way he was talking about a group of people. Like they were some, oh my God, their backs hurt and still they work. They die and they still do it. How interesting. We all need to be hitting him constantly on this stuff. The racism, the greed, the cruelty, the corruption, the criminality. So where is it? I even just gave you imagery you can use. Please do not let him get away with this. He's a racist. He's a scumbag. This is a guy known for the fact that the first lawsuit he ever had against him by the federal government was for writing C on the applications that his daddy, the apartment buildings his daddy rented out. C for the word colored, because they didn't want anyone Black living there. the history is long, from shithole countries to Jasmine Crockett and AOC or low IQ, which is funny coming from someone who's a cheese melt for a cerebral cortex. Hit him back. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't let this man get away with making racist, obnoxious statements, seeming like, oh, this is all Latinos are made for, is doing farm work, and they're happy doing it, and blah, 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 blah. They don't mind if they make any money. They're just, no, none of that crap. Hit them back. Hit them regularly. Attack them. Show their worldview for what it is. An unbelievably cloistered white supremacist, rich boy, obnoxious, just, again, a predatory worldview. They are predators, and Latino farm workers are just another group they use up. And if they die, they die. I guess it's, they're cool with that. Toss them away when you're done. This is not acceptable. He's not acceptable. They are gross. They're inhuman. And the fact that this pestilence runs our country is sickening. So do everything you can to make sure to get the word out on these kinds of things. I'll be writing into something I'm writing today. But it's us, folks. We all have to do it. And Democratic Party, you have to do it. You have to be bold. You have to tell these stories. You have to be bold both on offense about what you've accomplished and by pointing out how sick this person is. And if you think the racism argument, I think that would work in the Latino community and others. But if it's not gonna be a broad working, message with white working class voters, sadly, it can very easily be tied into the predatory message. That's the way he sees everybody, including you guys, MAGA voters who have FAFO'd your way through the last 6 months. That is what I have to say for today. I'm going to take a quick look. Thank you, Gracie, for saying spot on. I'm not sure which of the things you thought were spot on, but whichever one. Robert Schwartz, JD Vance wouldn't have the charisma to hold MAGA. There's nobody right now. Unless somebody comes up or somebody I'm not thinking of, think about them, who it could be. Elon Musk, JD Vance, Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio. None of these people, they all have the kind of charisma JD Vance has when he's ordering donuts, or Elon Musk when he jumps on stage and goes, okay, they are weird. They're incel adjacent. They're creepy. Donald Trump, sadly, as much as he's a gross creature, had an outgoing personality and is a willingness to make jokes, which I don't find funny, but their people do. These other people we're talking about don't even have that ability. So I think when they're going to try to find someone to unite this coalition beyond Trump. I don't know who that is yet, because I do not see somebody who has the slightest bit of even what I would call right-wing charisma, but I could be missing somebody. There could be someone in the House or somewhere else who could do it. I don't know. Let me say thank you to Sheldon Hughes. Shocker. Thank you so much. I'm joking. Of course, Sheldon gave a Cliff's Edge membership. Thank you so much, Sheldon. Mr. Android, member for 10 months. That's a lot of months. Thank you, Mr. Android. Medical debt and student debt can ruin lives. They can, they shouldn't even exist. Neither of those things should even be concepts. They weren't when I was in Italy. Mr. Android gave me $1.11. I like it. Ones all around. No, I mean, that's the thing. I've said anything helps, guys, and that's why I always do this. Then he gave me $7.77. I must be rich. I'm miserable. LOL. Mr. Android, you deserve to be up here for that. So $7.77 and $1.11. $8.88. Man, you're sticking with the patterns. Thank you. Anything would have been great. Lefty Gramps, as always, thank you so much. And yet so many people vote for the garbage. Sad. It is sad. And that's why we need to be bold in our messages so they know who the garbage is. So that was for $5. I appreciate that. And I think that was, so without me saying anything, we were able to get 5 super chats. So how about this? I'm not going to, not to 10, not even to 8. How about 7? 2 more. Can 2 more people support this effort? Support what we did today. Me and David Schuster, our guest, sent a Venmo to MJ. MJ, you're awesome. Okay. Venmo counts. That's 1. We're down to 1 more. Think of what we do. Think of the Substacks we write. Think of the guest we had on today. Think of David Schuster giving his time, a guy that used to sit there in the halls of CNN and MSNBC. It could be 99 cents. It could be anything. Just, as you know, and I've told you before, I could have talked more about it. It will be in the Substack that tomorrow we will have Olivia Troy on tomorrow, who ran away from the Republican Party when they got crazy. And of course, Sheldon Hughes, $2. Sheldon, you are just about the best. You're one of 3 or 4 here that keep this going. Thank you. We are going to have on Olivia Troy. She worked under Pence as national security advisor, got disgusted by Trump and everything around them, and is broken far away from the Republican Party. She will join us, and we will discuss a lot of the craziness on the right, what they're doing vis-a-vis Iran and Russia and any number of other places, I'm sure. But we're also going to announce we are actually officially, it will be in my Substack today. Please subscribe, blueamp.co. That we are officially, finally, it took a while, launching the Soundcheck Fund. What is that? The Soundcheck Fund is where we have already put 5 figures of funds in to give micro grants to creators. Another reason I ask for these things. Carl Jacobson with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much. So we put in, I'd say, some pretty serious money. We're going to give $500 to $1,000 grants because nobody else is building up the damn lefty sort of ecosystem of independent voices, independent media. So we're going to do whatever we can do, which isn't going to be what billionaires can do. But we put up our $10,000, and you guys, we're through our paid subscriptions right now. We're taking some of that money and adding to it. Soon we will have a donate button so people can do that. We're talking to donors. Wow, you guys are really coming in strong. Charco B with $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much. I missed 1 or 2. Carl Jacobson, member for 10 months. You are fantastic. Uncle Fatty, which just for the name alone, $4.20. Is that a 420 reference? If it is, I may need to go get a gummy soon. Legal here. F Trump, F MAGA. Agreed. So the Soundcheck Fund is going to be our way of on Substack, and we'll do it here at YouTube also, but it's just that Substack is where we blew up with a 12-hour live stream and some other things we've done to having that huge 500,000 plus, almost 600,000 account. So we are going to creators that are smaller or even ones that are decent size, but are not getting the funding they need. We're going to get out as many smaller grants that help them to make investments in what they're doing, ease the pressure a little bit, get their voices out. And then on our letter and our regular columns and everything, which haven't, we get opened overall. Our average day is about 460 to 475,000, which blows my mind. I can only thank all of you that are there doing that. We're going to promote these folks. So we are going to do our part and we've got skin in the game. We're going to put time into it and create an ecosystem. I hope lift up other voices to the point where if others start doing it too, and then they build a bigger voice and they get ads or they get more paid subscribers, they become self-sustainable. And they're able we're able to actually have an ecosystem on our side that helps promote democracy. That's the plan. So there you go, guys. Subscribe over there at blueamp.co and subscribe at Cliffs_Edge here at YouTube. We'll keep doing what we do, which is trying to get the message out through our various means, trying to have on great guests, trying to support other creators with the Soundcheck Fund and everything else we do. And you keep doing what you do, convincing people in your daily lives. I don't care if it's a formerly crazy uncle. I don't care if it's I've had a few people, 1 or 2 that are in extended family recently tell me they supported Trump in the past. They are horrified now. I know, FAFO and all that, but I'll still give them credit. They are now going to vote for only Democrats. We need those folks. Becky D jumps into, thank you so much, Becky. Thank you for opening people's ears. Thank you for the $5 super chat. We're going to open people's eyes, open people's ears. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that as many people as possible can be funded and can make a run of this. I often say, I know I keep saying I'm going to be done and I need to be done, but I often say, like, I had one or two of the most talented people I ever knew in this business who our institutions didn't support them, our billionaires didn't support, our donors didn't support them, nobody supported them. And in between campaign cycles, there's a dearth of things you can do. And they both had to go into corporate media. And not corporate media as in reporters, but corporate PR. And I don't blame them for it. That's what they had to do because we would not give them the ability to live on creating messages for us so we could have the kind of country we want. I'm tired of that. I'm sick of that. And that's why, I came to the conclusion with some other folks that we were going to create this fund. And no, again, even if we get some generous support, it's not going to be the size of, a billionaire cutting a check. But what if we get $1,000 people here, $1,000 there, give them the kind of support that gets them thousands of more subscribers? Substack, I think, is going to be adding ads 6 months down the road so they can make some money that way. They can make some money through paid subscribers and they can become sustainable. And then we have this ecosystem of talented folks. That would be a game changer. Any role I can play in that, I'd like to play. And the worst we can do is fail, which would mean we'd end up right where we are right now. So you know what? We're willing to risk the funds. We're willing to risk the time. We're doing it. Becky Burgess, wow, you guys are incredible. $9.99. Thank you so much. That is fantastic. And thanks for being here. I'm going to announce more on this tomorrow. Please be there when we interview Olivia Troy. It will be same time as here, 2 p.m. Eastern, but that's the show they gave me, Amped Up with Cliff Schechter, meaning that is only on Substack live. Later it's recorded and you can catch it here, but if you want to catch it live, be there tomorrow, 2 p.m. We'll promote it. Otherwise all I can say is thank you for all you guys have done. I got to head out as me again, Roseanne said, got to run. Thanks for a great show. Bye y'all. I'll say the same thing. Bye y'all. But instead I will throw out my oft repeated phrase. As the sun sets slowly in the west, my friends, I'd like to bid you a fond farewell.